So welcome to a video that explains why having your ego's biggest fears come to pass could be the best thing that could ever happen to you. It was for me, and I'll explain that. And as I do explain it, please think of your ego's biggest fears. And I am making a differentiation between you and your ego because I don't think who you really are has any fears whatsoever. I think that it's only by identifying yourself with your ego that you start thinking, I have fears. You don't have fears. This artificial, imaginary sense of self called the ego has lots of fears. And so think of your worst, the worst thing that could happen, losing a child, going broke, being homeless, whatever it is, just note it. You don't have to think about it. Just know right now. Those are my ego's biggest fears. And I'll tell you how it could be the best thing to actually have to face them. So for me, my biggest fears were that the work that I was doing would dry up. And I was doing my dream. I was living my dream, traveling all over the world with my music, my speaking, workshops, healing work, private sessions, and I had organizers all over the world, and it made me a lot of joy and money. I was raking it in, putting money in my retirement account and going on vacations. So all was well, but I kept having this recurring fear. What if it all goes to hell? And it really scared me. I would have nightmares about it. And so, the universe conspired to help me face my ego's biggest fears. So it was like three strikes and I was out. Strike one was the music streaming coming on the scene. And suddenly CD sales went out the window. Not suddenly, but gradually, less and less CD sales. And I had CD sales accounted for 60% of my income at a certain point. So that was wild. And then 2008, the year my daughter was born, the economic meltdown happened, the housing market crisis. And suddenly people were no longer wanting to spend money on going to conferences and hiring speakers and workshops. They just wanted to save their money for their basic needs. And and then came COVID. That was strike three. And I was out. I had to get a job, a real job. And I had dreaded that. And it turned out to be incredibly rewarding for me to work in a supermarket, sweeping floors and packing bags and helping customers find products. First, it was humiliating, cleaning toilets. And then it was humbling. And then it opened my heart to just give my all to this job. And it reminded me of Mother Teresa saying, you can't always do great things, but you can do small things with great love. So if I didn't have my career fall to pieces, I never would have learned that. Because in my glory days, my ego was attached to success as defining me. And I was avoiding facing unworthiness and not good enough, all that inadequacy stuff that lived in the basement and that ran my life. I was constantly overworking and overcompensating so that I could feel better than my ego's low self esteem. So I had to stop running away from all that and face it. Not easy, but certainly worth the effort. Second worst fear was that my daughter and my partner and I were a team, and I had vowed that as soon as we had a child, which was unexpected, it wasn't planned, that I would never leave this woman. I would never, ever leave her. Because of the pain I went through when my parents broke up. And I was 40 years old, and it just hurt so much. So I vowed if I ever would have a child, never, ever would I split up the family. And it didn't occur to me that it could possibly happen, that my partner, she was no longer attracted to me, and she worked hard to try to figure it out. But in the end, it was over for her. And so she broke up with me, and I had to face so much pain, guilt, shame, and the prospect of being a single dad, co-parenting, and grieving at the same time, and feeling poor me and terrible me. Oh, that's low self-esteem. So how could all of that be the best thing that could happen to me? Because my ego was defining me as someone who was in a really good relationship with a loving person, a really good father, a really great provider, a wonderful musician and author, and all these things. And when they all left, I was faced with myself. And gradually, over a decade, I learned to love myself without any of the trappings of ego. That never could have happened if the career kept going, and if the beautiful relationship and beautiful family kept going. Now I have a beautiful relationship with my daughter. We are very close. And my ex and I are harmonious. And but more important than the outer circumstances is that I was basing my sense of self on the outer world going a certain way. And when all of that went to dust, when things fell apart, my ego's plan fell, and God's plan was what was left. And God's plan was for my healing, so that I could feel whole and content and complete and one with love, no matter what was going on. So basically, I learned unconditional love by having the conditions get fall apart. My ego fell apart. My soul didn't fall apart. My soul shined more brightly than ever. And that's what can happen for you if something really bad happens, something you just never thought you could survive. You will survive, and it will be filled with gold. Tears, grief, anger, blame, victimhood, whatever you have to go through, that's the ego. But your true self, your authentic divinity, is going to emerge from losing what you think you need to feel good. Make sense? Okay, go out there and have fun. Bye, sweethearts.